So, A Complete Unknown is the story of Bob Dylan, or at least part of his story. It's 1961, right? And this young man named Bob strolls into town with his clunky acoustic guitar and his ratty clothes to meet Pete Seeger and Woody Guthrie, his two folk music heroes, and maybe get the opportunity to play a little something for him. Bob arrives in town, goes to play for him. They like him. They take him to an open mic. They give him a shot. And before you know it, Bob Dylan is becoming a local man about town. He gets a girlfriend, Sylvie, played by Elle Fanning, and he meets another young up-and-coming artist, Joan Baez, played by Monica Barbaro. And slowly, over time, Bob settles into his roots and creates some classic Americana folk hits that we all know today. Stuff like Mr. Tambourine Man and that song from the Watchmen intro. And, God, what is that song? Somebody's going to roast me in the comments if I don't get this. Andy, do you know it? Hi,
Times are the changing.
Times they are
Masters of
changing.
War.
Jesus. Yes. Okay. Maybe I can edit that and clean that up and somebody won't fry me. Yes. Times they are changing. Sorry. I'm not a big Dylan guy, but fortunately, Complete Unknown can kind of turn you into one a little bit. That is until the second half of the movie when we get a jump to 1965 and things have changed for Dylan. He started playing more of that electric stuff. The folk music people hate it. And now he's going to the Newport Festival with his band and they're like, hey man, we just want you to play folk. That was the stuff we liked that was good. And he says, well, I'm going to do it different because I'm not like everybody else. I'm my own person, right? I'm my own man. Bob arrives at the Newport Festival. Johnny Cash, played by Boyd Holbrook, in tow, to hopefully discover something new and introduce audiences to art that they haven't heard before. It's kind of a fitting thing for Bob Dylan, an artist who is elusive in the music biopic space. There's been a couple of loose attempts. There was that movie I'm Not There a few years ago that it starred a bunch of people in kind of rotating roles that weren't really playing Dylan, but kind of characters who were inspired by him. Timothée Chalamet does a really incredible job here, starring as the mystery man. He sings and plays guitar. As far as I know, it was live to tape. They are using incredibly long takes of him playing and singing these Bob Dylan classics. He looks and sounds great. Hot off the set of Wonka, Chalamet can seemingly do no wrong. He can take any role. He can do anything and be great at it. He's been working at this for years. There's footage of him playing Bob Dylan tracks dressed as Paul Atreides on the set of Dune 2. Like, it is incredible the amount of homework that has gone into this. And it's not just for him. Mangold has done his work. Coming off of that last Indiana Jones movie, you can tell he is notably refreshed to be working outside of the franchise system and making something unique again. And most importantly, Complete Unknown does something special. It doesn't draw our character as a hero. Bob Dylan is not necessarily a good dude, and I think that's exciting. It makes him interesting. He contains multitudes, just like the real Dylan himself. I think I've said enough about it. Andy, what'd you think of A Complete Unknown?
So I thought this was really well made, but it's also kind of a total dad movie. It's very safe. It's very paint by number. It reminds me of Dewey Cox, The Walk Hard Story, which is a parody of music biopics. And it's like beat for beat, but like the real thing. Bob Dylan comes to town. He whips out his guitar. He plays a song. He has like no conflict or no obstacles to overcome. It's constant success the entire time. But the performances, I think, are what stand out. I think he's gonna get nominated and probably win the Oscar for this, and everyone else in the movie is really good. Edward Norton is also Oscar worthy as Pete Seeger. Boyd Holbrook disappears as Johnny Cash. It's almost like the folk music Avengers is what I say, because it's like everyone your dad listened to is in this movie. But it plays everything real safe. It hits all the beats. It's been described as a really good airplane movie, and that's not an insult, but it's something that's really safe. But it doesn't really say too much. It doesn't take a lot of risks. It's perfect family fare. Came out on Christmas Day. Take the kids, take the family. But I think it is really well made. It's a little bit too long. It's 2 hours, 20 minutes. There's too much music in this music biopic. Like, you got to cut a song or two or performance or two. It goes on forever. They got to tighten it up. But I overall enjoyed it. I think it's very well made.
There's a lot of music in this music biopic. You're absolutely right. There's a ton, dude. There's a ton of tracks in here, way more than usual, which is surprising and I don't think hurts the feature. I think that's a good thing. Like I was sitting in an audience that was relatively full, mostly older folks in my theater, and a couple Dylan heads for sure. There was one woman just a couple seats down from me who was like notably like tapping her leg or like clapping along with music. Like she was totally into it, dude. It is a total bring your parents to the movies movie. And that's what James Mangold does best. Also, music biopics. Dewey Cox infamously skewers the music biopic scene in the same way that Austin Powers skewers James Bond. But Austin Powers was a direct response to James Bond in its secret spy movie presentation. Dewey Cox is a direct response to James Mangold's Walk the Line. James Mangold made Walk the Line about Johnny Cash. Dewey Cox comes out a couple years later. Absolutely just floors it, right? Like and music biopics still have to come out in the shadow of that movie, just like Kingsman has to come out in the shadow of Austin Powers. So when James Mangold goes back to the music biopic space to make this movie, it obviously is going to have echoes of Walk the Line, his previous feature, and of course similar ilk to Dewey Cox, inadvertently, Walk Hard, which I think is fine. I don't think it's a bad thing. What's important is that Mangold has learned from this. Visually, this film is rich. I love the setting. I love the costuming. I love the look of this world as we're approaching the Cold War in '61, and even on the eve of these kind of young folk artists finding their footing and finding themselves in like a studio system that is likely very clearly taking advantage of them. And Pete Seeger, like your down-to-earth country bumpkin banjo playing nice guy who's like, well, come on, Bob, come over and play folk music with us at the Newport Folk Festival. He's a lot of fun. Like you said, like Norton totally gets lost in there. He's great. He's got the thinning hairline rolling back. Like, I like the world of A Complete Unknown. But Bob Dylan's a complicated dude. And like, I like that he's not without fault in this movie. He's got more than a few faults. And that's something that characters around him struggle to move through. First off, where he comes from and who he really is immediately thrown into question in the film as people start to look into his past and go, wait a second, like, this guy's name actually Dylan? Because it says here he might be named Robert Zimmerman. And then somebody else is like, hey, are you really going to play folk music? Like, because the electric music you play is bad, Bob. It's mid, and you need to play the good stuff soon. And him being like, hey, I'm gonna do my own thing. I mean, even in a bit of womanizing, right? There's some relationship stuff with the Sylvie character played by Elle Fanning and Monica Barbaro. Like, that stuff's complicated. And I like that Dylan apparently has been elusive his whole career. Like his kind of whole presentation has been like the man from nowhere, right? And that fits here. Like, that kind of fits perfect here. It doesn't try to make him something he's not, and it doesn't try to redeem him. It kind of just presents facts as they come and it gets out of its own way. And of course, like you said, that leads to a avalanche of success where nothing ever goes wrong for our hero, right? And like, he just continues to walk into more and more work and bigger paychecks. It's like it's destined to happen that way, right? Like, it has to be over the course of A Complete Unknown. But I'm with you. It's like 20 minutes too long. You need to tighten it up just a little somewhere.
Yeah, there does seem to be kind of a lack of conflict in Walk Hard. What's the Walk the Line? The Johnny Cash one with Joaquin Phoenix. He's battling substance abuse and alcoholism. That's like the big thing he has to overcome. And he has like a rock bottom moment where he's like just so trash and has to go into recovery. And like, we don't have any of that in this movie. Like, what does Bob have to overcome? Like, his womanizing? Not really. He doesn't. Like him being true to himself, maybe. I mean, he just kind of plays what he wants, whether it's the hits or not. Like, it kind of lacks any kind of conflict for him to overcome.
Yeah, it's like undiagnosed autism or something. And I mean that like the most complimentary, nice way. I don't mean that in any kind of derogatory fashion. Like, he is a weird dude. He talks funny. He sings funny. His lyrics are insane. To date, he's written like 55 albums or something. And won a Nobel Prize for literature, right? One of the only songwriters to ever do it. Not saying the man doesn't have talent, but he's weird. And it's kind of cool in the first half of this movie how characters kind of orbit around that weirdness. And as he grows, they just find more and more like, we don't know anything really about you. Who are you? You know, who is Bob Dylan? And like, I think it's kind of special in the second half, the movie kind of shifts more to be on his shoulder and kind of follow along with that a bit. But as the audience, you don't really find out. And it's tough because unfortunately, it seems like in the film, most of Dylan's recognizable, iconic work is in his folk days, which is like 61 to 63, 64. When it pivots to 65 and he's playing electric, he's playing like all junk you've never heard of, plus How Does It Feel, which you heard in a Target ad somewhere. Like, and that stuff's all really good, but like it is notable that his best stuff did seem to be before those times. If he's done great stuff since, it's not covered in the film. The film does not cover his career. It is simply like a 4-year span. It's pretty tight. And that's good for a couple hours, right? Like that moves along. He makes his money, meteoric rise to the top, breaks up with the girlfriend, maybe gets back up together with the girlfriend, maybe finds a new girlfriend. That stuff's all fun. Like, I think that all works good. I think Complete Unknown ultimately is really good, but I don't know if it's great. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's a great film. I was just telling you before we started here. I think it might go on my notable entries for last year, but I don't think it's a top 10er. It's really good. It's really good. But like, it just doesn't, I don't know.
Like I said, the craft of it is like, it looks great, incredible performances. The performances are the highlight for sure. And it gets to a point where he's not really acting, where he is just a musician at this point. Like, he is playing guitar and singing, and they have it on, and they're getting him on camera. But it's not, at that point, you're no longer acting. But he does do the voice. I needed subtitles for him sometimes. I could not understand everything he said.
Dude. Yeah,
but it is very well made. It's a good family film. It's good middle of the road. It's just very safe. And it just kind of lacks, like, I think back to the Elvis biopic, which was really bold in its presentation. And I think you have to take some sort of approach, like even the Robbie Williams biopic that's coming out later this month, where he's played by a CGI monkey. Like, I don't know what that's going on, but apparently it kind of works. Or like Rocket Man, the Elton John biopic, you just have to attack these things in different, unique ways. You can't just tell the story as it is. It's just too bland.
Right. And that's maybe this movie's biggest fault. It does tell a small slice of it, but like, yeah, it just starts to feel like other music biopics you've seen, which is a shame. Everybody's fun in it. Boyd Holbrook's a lot of fun as Cash. Any other thoughts for recommendations?
I'm ready.
Andy, would you recommend A Complete Unknown?
Yeah, overall, I would. It is a well-made movie. It's very good. It's incredible performances. If you're a music lover, absolutely. If you're like a guitar player or singer-songwriter, definitely check it out. Timmy's probably going to win the Oscar, the first of many, hopefully, for this. And he's had an incredible several years. It is a little bit too long. There's a bit too much music, but overall, recommend.
Yeah, streets are saying he might be on a generational white boy run. Like, Timothée Chalamet's killing it, and like, they might be right, dude. Like, he's probably winning the Oscar for this. I don't know who might beat him, but like, he's certainly getting nominated. It's really incredible work. He's fantastic. I know next thing he's doing is Marty Supreme from A24, Josh Safdie's directing. Like, that's supposed to be a lot of fun. I don't know, dude. Like, seems like the kid can do no wrong. Rock solid movie to take your dad to. A Complete Unknown. One more film to talk about. Normally we wrap it up about here, get to the end of the show, talk about what we're watching next week. But a mini review, a micro review, since Andy saw this one. Andy, please take it away.
Baby Girl.